wins they have, we get a little bit disappointed. It can be some things we can look for in this game here. Fnatic obviously coming in 2 out of their 3 series they played so far.
Yep. Of course, looking at both these squads, going to be interesting to see how they adapt their pick and bans. Of course, Rise remains completely off the table. You see that 94.3. I think he made it through 1 game for H2K
we had
in the hands of Ryu.
As well.
Oh,
yeah,
true.
Ryu got 1, and then last game, or first game of the day, we had Rise as well. The bait being set up by G2. So, what are we looking at here? Kalista being banned against Rekkles quite a bit, mainly because in the early weeks, you like to target ban comfort picks more than what we call the OPs. Like, Kalista is by no means the best AD carry, but it's a very good pick for Rekkles and YellowStar.
Of course. Nidalee also being a priority here to take away from Spirit now. Most of the hyper-aggressive junglers have been nerfed. He's been adapting, however, pulling out the Kha'Zix twice yesterday.
Is Ryu showing his guns? Or
Jankos was. We saw him take a drink, like, while casually flexing.
The classic.
Hey,
the classic.
Hey, camera, get this real quick.
I'm waiting for Krebo to do that, by the way. It's going to happen sometime on camera.
I'm not entirely convinced, but either he's very fit or he flexes every time the camera hits him.
I'm pretty sure it's the second one.
Vladimir, of course, banned out as well, and the immediate lock-in coming in for H2K. The priority here set down onto Gragas.
Okay. Interesting first choice if you consider the fact that things like Caitlyn are still open. Something a lot of AD carries are aiming for early on in the draft, because Caitlyn has become like that S-tier pick. We know Gamsu can still play tanks top. He's actually been playing a lot of tanks, and I think that's why H2K is going for Gragas here. It's because Gamsu plays a top lane as one of his picks. It's a flex option. Jankos can take a jungle. Odoamne can take a top lane as well. So it is a safe first pick, and often you see teams steal away comfort picks again from other teams.
Absolutely, and the fear of a flex pick here. I mean, maybe not a flex pick as much for H2K. Don't want to give that option over onto the side of Fnatic, and Fnatic really taking their time in this first rotation, but this is a strong core to a team composition we've seen in so many different metas.
It is, but we don't see many teams early lock in a Maokai anymore, at least here in Europe, where we are playing on 6-11. He did receive a few more nerfs, and he's very open to a lot of counter picks, like Fizz top lane does extremely well into him. I actually think H2K should put this Gragas in the jungle and pick a Fizz top. Don't have to pick it in this rotation, but at least the next one. And therefore give Odoamne a great matchup, because that's why you don't see early pick Maokai anymore. There's just too many counters for him in lane. But is this a sign that Gamsu really only wants to play these tanks and doesn't want to play around with Irelia and picks like that? Because, again, it's surprising to me that it gets picked this early. But it is a Fnatic style. Like, they play tanks top, mainly.
Absolutely, and when we saw them first rise to dominance with the newer roster, obviously it was during the Sivir era. Has been a very powerful pick for them historically. H2K really taking their time on that final rotation, but it will be the Lee Sin as well as the Karma locked in.
So they're not putting the Gragas jungle. They want early aggression from Jankos, but Lee Sin obviously still benefits mainly from getting level 6, where he really starts to shine. Composition with a lot of disengage already. Gragas, Karma in there, a lot of utility from H2K. Not running the Ashe Zyra we saw yesterday. That worked out really well for the team.
All right, no one cheered for Talia, but y'all cheer for Aurelion Sol. I just want to say, like, high priorities, ladies and gentlemen. But of course, it will still be the Kha'Zix and the Nami.
We're back, boys. And Kha'Zix is here once again.
Spirit tweeted yesterday that it's really hard to play.
It is really hard.
That's our insight we got from Spirit.
Like, it is such a hard champion to play, because if you get stuck in a full-blown team fight, oftentimes you don't deal enough damage. But if it's a very split-up fight where like targets are standing alone or being a little bit out of position, Kha'Zix is fantastic. One kill, reset, next kill, jumps around. But he's also a skirmish jungler. Benefits a lot from being able to duel 1v1. Lee Sin can track him though in his stealth and actually find him in these 1v1s.
And Spirit, of course, really showing how dominant he could be on the pick yesterday. Outplaying left and right, great use of that ultimate to use the stealth and the movement speed to weave in and out of skill shots, barely making it out with his life on multiple occasions.
Oh, are we going freeze Draven?
Oh!
We're back, boys.
Oh! When the going gets tough, freeze picks Draven.
Yeah, H2K is definitely not looking to just sit back and relax in this game here. Freeze goes back to his signature champion, the Draven, the very first pick he played in professional play. Very first game, of LCS in Freeze's career, he first picked the Draven. Do you know how I know this? Because I said, let's first pick Draven. We have Freeze. And we won, so it was great. But we didn't first pick it ever since because it's actually a terrible first pick. But anyway.
That's a great little story there.
Yeah. Saving it for when he actually did play Draven. And now he's locking it in. But strange composition because of the Draven, obviously, from H2K.
Absolutely. And now with the Viktor locked in as well, Fnatic really taking their time to figure out what they want to do here. We've got interesting mobility components with the Karma, the budget Sivir, you could say, with that Mantra Inspire. Turns into that Defiance, that movement speed steroid. But a lot of disengage potential with the Gragas and the Lee Sin, and a whole heck of a lot of damage on that Draven. Downside, though, Febi's picking up this LeBlanc, and we've seen how quickly Fnatic can snowball a game if they get an early lead. Pretty dangerous situation for H2K.
But I really feel like Fnatic here, they will need to snowball. Like Draven late game, Viktor late game, even tank Gragas is obviously a very strong frontline late. Fnatic is running this comp, which is so good at skirmishing and picking targets off. But in a straight team fight where H2K are able to sit together and actually protect both Ryu and Freeze at the same time, Maokai Kha'Zix I actually don't think will have enough damage. We're talking full late game here to take them down. And then it's all about Febiven trying to get a proper flank, but it becomes very difficult against the shielding. Ryu has picked barrier as well. Draven can go BT. There's a lot of ways for H2K to become very, very hard to kill late game. Fnatic, they want to snowball here, especially around the mid lane with Kha'Zix and LeBlanc.
Absolutely have the potential to do so. Really need to. We've seen how lethal Spirit can be when that Kha'Zix does get ahead, but it's a pretty high-risk situation. Of course, with the lineups locked in, it's time to hit the riff for Europe's match of the week.
There's a lot more rivals I will have than I had before.
I'm expecting really solid drafts from H2K.
We have good chances of coming back into the state that we were last year.
YellowStar is going to make things a lot better for them.
Ryu and Freeze are not the best players in their role, so they might get outperformed.
I would just try my best to take the trophy back.
This is it, ladies and gentlemen. Fnatic versus H2K. If you think H2K can show us a shade of them former selves, if they can bust it out this time, tweet out hashtag H2KWin at LOL eSports. Or if you think Fnatic can regain their former glory, be the top champs that Europe so often wants them to be, tweet hashtag FNCWin. Both teams set up, leaving the base. Draven locked in. This is going to be a game to watch.
And we just heard Febiven here poking the bear a little bit. You're like, yeah, Freeze and Ryu, not good enough right now and could get outperformed by Febiven and Rekkles themselves. And I think if we look at the first few games we've seen, I do agree with him. I think Freeze and Ryu has struggled a little bit, and I think Rekkles and Febiven has been playing very well. And we see Fnatic saying, you know, we can take 2v2 lanes. We can play Nami here for strong laning phase. We can, of course, with a LeBlanc in the mid lane, try and really snowball early against Ryu. LeBlanc has to do well. She needs kill pressure in lane to have an impact. Now, Draven, obviously, level 1, level 2, and so on is actually not insanely strong, so I understand H2K's choice here to lane swap. And Fnatic will then get their duel in on the bottom side.
Really interesting here as well. The big question that I have, of course, is the Kha'Zix in the jungle, because Lee Sin, we know he can be an early game terror. Kha'Zix feels like he needs a few more levels under his belt, or needs to find that isolated target.
For sure.
And so the jungle pressure feels so in favor of H2K in the early game, and that seems like it already puts Febiven at a little bit of a deficit here.
I don't think it's that bad. Lee Sin, again, is a jungler who also really wants to farm up to level 6 before he becomes extremely impactful. Can gank early, I definitely agree with you. But Kha'Zix definitely wants to farm up to 6. Again, he's a skirmish jungler, he's not a ganking jungler, specifically. There is some good CC in the lanes, though, to set him up. Like, if you do manage to go and get a 1v1 on top side with Maokai locking down a target, Spirit can jump in and be really, really strong. But you want to hit level 6, and then your single target damage is one of the very scary things in the game. As a Kha'Zix, once you get your evolution, you obviously just instantly aim for your Q.
Yep.
Your early spikes.
If you ever find those isolated targets, you can just rip through them once you hit that level 6 point. Pretty strong in the early game as well, but of course, really wanting that evolution upgrade.
But H2K, lane survivors we talked about. You want to farm up Draven. You want to get him as many stacks as possible and give him one item under his belt, and he becomes extremely scary to deal with. It used to be like an early BT rush. Ghostblade is a great option for him as well if you get to go back where you can only afford longswords to stack them up and then get your early Ghostblade in there, and you have a fantastic spike on one item just with your raw damage. And now just standard so far. Freeze tanking up some damage doesn't really matter a whole lot.
Yep, not going to be too big of a deal. YellowStar similarly low on the opposite side. Freeze, no stranger to catching those axes, but really just waiting for this game to break open. Wave will be not quite bounced perfectly off the tower, it looks like.
And Freeze did play it in the NA LCS for Renegades, obviously the Draven. He lost, however, so not the greatest story on that one, but it is his pick.
Truly, if anyone has a signature, it definitely is that Freeze Draven. So often the focus of target bans early in his career. Of course, a lot of...
Fair was also one trick back then, but
yeah,
different story. Back when Draven also had a bleed as his passive, and he was really, really hard to play against in lane.
He's still hard to play against in lane. And
yeah,
this
but
is
it's
without
not the same.
bleed. No, I know, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, I can't even remember how absurd that was, because it was a nightmare.
Yeah, level 2, you just all in and kill people, basically.
Yep.
That was
that blood rush.
Life of Draven back then. However, now, again, as we talk about, you want to stack up your passive. You want to get that first item completed, especially first big AD item. He does so well with just raw attack damage. Gamsu gets a stop here, which actually is important. Cost 8 to 10 seconds for Gamsu when it comes to returning to the lane. He wants to go top side. No surprise. And this skin is still really weird.
I think it's adorable, Deficio.
Can still be weird at the same time. Like you.
Ah, I'll take that as a compliment.
Do it.
Gamsu, of course, now moving up to the top side to keep this lane swap. I almost said split push. I'm getting a little stuck here. Similar option on the bottom side from H2K, although Odo's a little bit behind. Small tempo advantage gained back. For H2K, not going to be too much. Spirit just sitting in range of XP. That's a cheeky little move.
Start recalling there. No one really goes in and check the bush normally, because Vander's just going to walk up the lane and then put a ward down. Don't really check that early, so it gets a little bit of extra experience. But I want to see what Febiven can do in this mid lane, because we have this lane swap, so mid lanes are isolated at this point. And when you play LeBlanc, I like to look at basically a square on the map that you have to control, because you have kill pressure as LeBlanc early on, which is between the 4 buffs. Like, you need to be able to always move from your lane and contest around those 4 buffs. You need to always make sure that if the enemy mid laner wants to move, he needs to see you. Like, he can't just blind walk in towards the river or towards a buff, because there's a chance you're hiding there as a LeBlanc. And while you might not kill him, you at least force him back to base. So controlling between the 4 buffs is going to be key for Febiven. And because you have this skirmish jungler, if you can find like Jankos in the river, trying to set up a water clear vision or set up a gank, then Spirit can jump him, and Febiven will always jump in as well before Ryu can react. Early gank here.
Going in.
Say early gank, we're 6 minutes in, so I'll take that back.
This is the chain, but this is a fast level 6 coming in from Spirit. Jankos just hitting level 5. We'll be able to catch up at a pretty decent pace, but Vander continuously making sure that Gamsu is going to struggle to farm in these lanes. Throwing out auto attacks. Looking back to mid lane, as you mentioned. Jankos moves up to the top side. Actually, this could be more of a commitment. Moves forward. Flash from Gamsu a little bit too late. Exhaust goes down. Can they get this one auto in? Twisted advance onto the Lee Sin. Keeping it going. Gamsu gonna drop for first blood.
Oh, really big mistake from Gamsu, just coming down to reaction time. Flashing too late. The Q connects from Jankos, and then it's an easy first blood. Something that should never happen, by the way. That should have been an easy one for Gamsu to flash, and I think Jankos just wanted to trade his Q for that flash, basically. Never expected it to land. Still, the teams are trading. This is something we don't see that often anymore. We continue going for tier 2 towers and swaps, but none of them are really looking to go into standard lanes, because again, H2K want to keep this Draven just farming, stacking up and getting a few longswords here and there to get a tower trade.
Definitely works out well, and of course, Jankos, that's his second first blood of the split, and we've seen how well that usually works out for H2K. So often when they get the early tempo advantage, they are able to snowball the lead and start taking the games.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Jankos also gave up first blood in 3 games.
Yeah, so, well,
that's a negative one.
I'm trying to focus on the positive here, sir. We don't...
Yeah, he's a terrible first blood king,
now.
giving up first bloods everywhere. Because Fnatic, they weren't bottom side, They do have the Dragon control from taking that tower, and now we should see both teams either go for the other two tier 2 towers in the side lanes and just keep swapping around, or we get these standard lanes on the bottom side of the map where Draven and Karma is going. Fnatic right now, because they also had to use time taking Dragon with their jungler.
Interesting,
A
of
little
course.
bit slower.
One of the strengths of this Kha'Zix overall is that it can rip through that Dragon's health bar relatively quick. Of course, Dragon forever alone in that little pit, so pretty easy for them to pick up. Jankos, though, catching up now with his first blood, probably ahead in gold by just a small margin here. You can see it on your screen now. 200 difference, not a whole ton, but will be a decent advantage for the board.
And what happens often when you push for tier 2 towers is you leave that minion wave very far pushed in or very close to the enemy base, because you're taking that tier 2 tower, and even if you bounce it back, it takes a long time for the wave to move back past the river towards your side. So you want to leave your top laner to just sit and take that wave, because he has a teleport. He's often the weaker guy. You want to make sure your top laner is always the guy catching the waves and lane swaps, and your AD carry support are the guys who's pushing out. So they are stronger because they are together. Friendship, everything, whatever. But
Team unity, synergy,
keep going with it, man.
alignment.
Alignment, that's the best one.
How many
Favorite.
buzzwords can we throw in?
But we do see Fnatic knowing, well, there's a Gragas sitting on bottom side who just wants to farm, so we can actually go into enemy jungle, and we're not really afraid, because Freeze is sitting on top side freezing, and he's not going anywhere. He's at Draven. Like, he's freezing the wave, he's stuck there.
And this is something that I want to look at. A part of Draven's kit that I feel like hard to utilize but can be so huge is the new passive. It may not be a bleed anymore,
But the passive?
well, it's I guess it's been a passive for almost 3 years now. Ooh, Febiven, though, getting aggressive. But Draven is stacking up. He's about 170 now. Fnatic, of course, getting notifications in their chat every time he hits a certain threshold.
And now what we often see from a team who have this situation where 2 lanes are freezing is you just go mid. Because you just try and get a bit of pressure on the mid tower and then push in the wave and then move into enemy jungle after, because you have 2 jungles you can go into because the enemy team is freezing. Like, you see where they are, they can't really move from their lanes. But again, Freeze is just sitting and farming here.
And what's interesting here is that despite the fact that Freeze is just keeping the wave frozen and taking these jungle camps whenever he gets the opportunity. Very difficult. It's like expect.
Yes. Oh, we expect.
Yeah, no, just please. Remember, folks, if you ever make it to pro play, think about the casters when you pick your name. That's all I'm saying.
Like Visichat. No, actually, that's a good name.
That's
I like
fine.
that. The first time I saw it, I'm like, oh.
No.
Yeah.
And then in the moments of intensity, you can be like Chachi. Or if you're casual friends with him.
I actually really like the name now. I do hope we pronounce it correct. Pretty sure we do.
It's a constant struggle here. Trying to figure out how to pronounce it appropriately.
Welcome to my life.
Yes.
Every word. Every day it's a struggle. I cry every night.
Wow, every night.
Every night.
At least you're committed.
It's a really sad
And
life.
We gotta
It's a
respect
really sad
that, right?
life.
But looking at it, Farm finally evening up now as that freeze does pay off for the AD carry on the side of H2K. Dang, it's such a trap. Vander clearing out the vision as best he can, and despite all the aggression coming out from Febiven in the early laning phase, Ryu with actually a pretty decent CS advantage. 10 in his favor with even lanes. So.
We also had Febiven surrendering a few CS because the rest of his team kind of wanted to join him. They had nowhere else to go on the map. They didn't want to hard commit to the top side to stop the freeze from freeze. So instead, they had to go mid, and therefore...
Do we have another word to describe freezing a lane? Is there? Can we find one out?
I'm not sure.
Or do we have a cute nickname for H2K's AD carry?
He's anti-pushing it.
Freeze. Rather
No
reckless.
longer freezing.
Rekkles, not going to anti-push the wave, is going to push that one out. Of course, things relatively calm on the map thus far. Small gold advantage for H2K off the back of that first kill. No major advantages yet. And Febiven continuing to try to throw blows out here, but the Negatron Cloak just mitigating so much of the early damage.
Yeah, it's so easy for Ryu just to itemize MR, get Abyssal early. He doesn't even have to fully upgrade into Abyssal. He can just sit here on the Cloak, and then he has Barrier as well. So there's no real kill pressure from Febiven. It's just about having the lane push. Like, can you challenge first? Are you allowed to always hit the minion wave first and clear them out because you're a little bit stronger in the 1v1 and you have to respect the potential gank coming? Then you can push it in and you can start moving to the river and kind of threaten on top side or maybe on the bottom side. But in this case here, Febiven is not really able to kill Ryu. So Ryu is just happy sitting and farming, and H2K has basically been happy farming in this early game. Because they have the Draven. Stacking. Not sure what other words I can repeat a few times?
Contesting, potentially, depending on how teams feel about the Infernal Drake that is spawning. And Freeze is approaching that one item breakpoint you talked about, most likely the Youmu's. Well, 100% pretty much.
It is, yes. Even though we have been tricked earlier. Or I
horribly misled by the new mod, how Morty's built patch.
Yeah,
we say new, but it's been
it's pickaxe, right? Yeah, like all time. It's definitely pickaxe. No, it's not. I was definitely wrong on that one. However, I want to see him get the Ghost Blade now and go bot side, and that's exactly what he's doing because I want to see H2K be ready to fight for this dragon. You said it. The one item spike on a Draven is here. It's a great early item. Early flat armor penetration is fantastic. His overall damage now is good enough to contest a dragon. Ryu, of course, is fine in the mid lane, and you have these tanks on top side who are ready to fight as well. TPs are there, Infernal Dragon spawning. Fnatic realizing that Freeze is on the bottom side, trying to set an early trap into it and a free dragon. Vander, don't do it. Check it with the Q. Oh, he Q'd the minion.
Oh, not what he wants. Tidal Wave comes in on the backside. Flash out for Vander. Freeze all alone, but in comes TP and Jankos.
Oh, he missed the Q.
Misses the follow-up, though. Bubble gonna hit him as well. Spirit throwing a bit of damage down. Draven doesn't hit too hard just yet. Both sides walking away empty-handed, but H2K giving up their teleport.
Yeah, using TP, that means H2K has to suddenly commit straight to the dragon, and therefore Fnatic might have a chance to TP in with the Maokai. If Odoamne returns to top lane, then you surrender that Infernal Drake, so that's why he's staying around. H2K realizing, okay, push out your lanes very, very fast. Push up bot, push up mid, and then be ready to move in here and start dragon and force Fnatic to come teamfight you. Freeze is on his way now after pushing bot side. Same thing for mid with Rio. Always push your lanes first, guys. Now we're moving in.
Maokai, of course, pushing in the top side as well, but there is a ward in the pit. Fnatic have to be careful. Febi goes in.
Here's the TP.
Vander going down. Dragon dropping in the favor of H2K. They need to make it out of this one. Freeze, though, I may have to fight for his life. Jankos, no flash either. Going to make it out finally, but Gamsu goes over. No hesitation. Spirit burning down. Freeze picks up a kill. Odo picks up one as well. Fnatic have overstayed their welcome. Draven hits like a truck. Viktor picks up another one. 4-0 for H2K.
Yeah, I don't think Fnatic could have played that any worse. Not only did they TP very late, by the time they TP in, the team is completely split up. And they then flash over the walls, try to follow straight into the jungle of H2K with no vision. There's a Ghost Blade Draven, by the way. Flat penetration, everything he wants. Way more damage than a Sivir, like just straight against one target. And they just come in one by one by one. You saw even Spirit Shot of join. Let's see, it's a very late TP from Gamsu first of all. So Dragon is now gone. Team is split up. Febiven on one side, 3 guys still in river. Then both Gamsu and Spirit jumping over the wall. But this is a team fight now. Kha'Zix does not have any value in these kind of fights, where everyone is standing together, no one is out of position, you may isolate it. And then, well, there was a Draven who got his first kill.
And now going towards Ma, continuing on the build path of flat penetration.
Ah, a Dirk. There you go, that's a Maw.
Not a pickaxe this time. That's a Cole, in case you
Oh, it is?
forgot about that one. I know that H2K AD carries have historically avoided this item, but I swear you can build it.
It is a good item, especially when you've been lane swapping and freezing lanes for the first 10 minutes. Anti-pushing lanes for the first 10 minutes. Then yes, Hull is fantastic. But getting a team fight where the other team messes up the engage and your Draven gets a first blood, or not first blood, a first kill, and he cashes in 718 gold. Well, that's also pretty great. So H2K right now is very happy. Probably right now can probably be happy and satisfied. You probably can't stop smiling right now.
But of course, have to close out here. An early advantage doesn't mean anything if you can't find the win. And while Freeze may be well on the path to snowballing,
that's the thing. We have to keep in mind that Fnatic were the team who really wanted to play aggressive early and actually snowball with this mid lane pick in here against Draven, against Viktor. Like these late game fights, as long as H2K can protect the two major damage dealers in Ryu and Freeze, well then there's a lot of burst damage, just a lot of constant damage honestly coming from these two guys as well.
One thing we gotta say, Fnatic very critical of H2K in that intro video. Standard at best. Moving in, oh great knock aside. It goes Freeze, gonna get that Whirling Death, the pickup. 2-0 into another cash out coming in. Overconfidence on the side of Fnatic to step forward.
Well, credit to Freeze again. because he just interrupted that distortion from Febiven, forced him out of position due to it, and then obviously rest of H2K jumps in, he gets the kill with the ulti. Just fantastic play on this Draven from Friesen. I mean, it's not a surprise on this champion, but Fnatic right now, everything has gone wrong, honestly, for them.
Absolutely. You can see the Kha'Zix hovering around the outside. We saw Spirit almost always build a second damage item first.
Like, look here, wait for Freeze with W. Yep, just straight up interrupting Febiven.
Boom, Whirling Death.
Shoots him back a little bit, and then he goes down instantly.
This is just not at all where you want to be. As I was mentioning before we got into that replay, Spirit always going for a second damage item before building tank when he has the lead and he has the advantage. But when he's behind, he's forced to build a little bit tankier. And now that H2K have a pressure advantage, I don't know if Fnatic are ever going to get the opportunity to split them up.
No, it's become so difficult once your LeBlanc didn't snowball, and enemy Draven here in this case is getting fed. 2 items completed. Obviously it was stand aside the E from Draven, not the W he used there before, but the fact that your LeBlanc didn't manage to do anything means you still have to put her in a side lane, but she doesn't really have any kill pressure at this point. And wherever Freeze is on the map, Fnatic is weaker. So they constantly have to be afraid of what the Draven can do and where H2K wants to force, because they obviously want to try and force things around Freeze right now. He's so fed at 18 minutes.
And this is terrifying to play against. Currently, Draven's whirling axes, whenever he throws one, that's 202 additional bonus damage. It's essentially a free crit at this stage of the game, as long as he's juggling those axes. And Freeze, of course, not going to hesitate to do so at all. A veteran Draven player. Mid lane goes down, no opportunity to contest there from Fnatic, and they're going to just have to give up these little objectives left and right. Spirit may be looking for a flank. Gamsu does have TP, but H2K just going to back off, happy with the small advantages.
And we just see both teams waiting for another dragon. Mountain Drake coming up, so we won't get any Cloud Drakes in this game. But instead, some very, very good early Drakes. Ocean is great early game. Infernal is good basically all the time. It is better late, obviously, because it's percentage and not flat. And then Mountain Drake at this point, where we know H2K wants to start moving towards a Baron later, because they want to force Fnatic to come in and fight them head on and not be able to set up any flanks with Kha'Zix, any flanks with LeBlanc. If Fnatic is forced to run head first against H2K, Fnatic will lose the fight. They're finding Odoamne on the bottom side though.
Gonna have to try to make his way out to safety. Cask and a flash. Won't be enough to disengage here. Looks like it will. That's a terrifying duo from Fnatic. But they have to land that CC if they actually want to get the kill. And Odo, simply too tanky.
And H2K have not really been able to set up properly for this dragon. There are no wards behind Fnatic right now, so Fnatic can't start it. Febiven is on the other side of the dragon wall, trying to flank and see if he can pick off Freeze or Ryu. H2K though going in.
Moving in. Who's going to get the dragon? Lee Sin goes in. Smite goes down. Kha'Zix takes it. Febi, instant exhaust onto him, but Fnatic may just look to disengage. Jankos on the front lines, but he is all alone. Flashback into the team. Rekkles taking so much, though. Freeze on a killing spree. The Storm backing him up, and it truly is chaos for Fnatic as H2K pick up another kill.
1 for 1, though, in that fight. It's not over yet, Tsepha. They're both on the wrong side of the map. Fnatic do get to recall.
A brief truce. Neither one wanting to extend that fight any further.
But another fight here where Fnatic are trying to get the flank every single time. But as soon as Febiven jumps in, look here how fast the exhaust comes down from Vander. Just wait for Febiven to jump over the wall. He realizes, okay, not the right target. Instant exhaust from Vander. He has to jump back. Jankos then ends up being split up from his team, and therefore he goes down once he returns, taking a lot of damage from it. But at the same time, Rekkles are caught in the Dragon Pit. Nothing you can do, and you see how Fnatic want to constantly split up fights. Like, Spirit is always hovering around, waiting for one guy to step out of position, but H2K is just sitting as a 5-man unit. As soon as Jankos actually jumped out, he was like, no, I'm jumping back in. I don't want to risk anything here, just stay with my team at all times.
And what's crazy is, with the new Viktor ult and that insane amount of burst damage that it can provide, combined with an incredibly fed Draven, 3-0 and 2, triple cash outs. This game evenly spread out too, pretty much, so happy to grab all those stacks. It's just too much burst damage for Rekkles to deal with. You saw the spell shield come out, it just doesn't matter. Oh yeah, his health bar gets deleted instantly if Draven ever gets in range, and he just doesn't have the same front line. You've got a LeBlanc, you've got a Kha'Zix, both these guys, they're not going to protect you.
Exactly.
It's Rekkles and YellowStar versus the world if Gamsu's not there to protect him.
Definitely a bad situation for Fnatic. They did already get the dragon, so that's something at least. Might get a pick on Jankos, then realizing actually no, because he has Locket at this point. Fnatic try to set up a push on tower. They do have a TP advantage at the moment, so small things for Fnatic.
They get a little bit of damage down as well, so not completely worthless. They are pushing in on the bottom side as well, and now starting to throw down some vision around this Baron area, but H2K going to contest it. Of course, Fnatic do have the Mountain Drake here. They did not give it over to H2K, so a little bit in their favor. Yeah,
and we see so much early MR from H2K as well. So we might just see instant Void Staff coming in from Febiven as his second item is actually much better in terms of overall damage, so it should be the one he's going for. But we see H2K, again, stay together at all times. Starship Troopers all over again. See the aliens, man, but nope, stays a team.
Freeze suddenly left alone on the front line. Gamsu looking for the flank, but Fnatic is not set up for this one. Odo isolated and alone, but he's simply too tanky. My God, the Viktor damage. Fnatic health bars immediately deleted. Gamsu, the sacrificial lamb, but Ryu wants more. Jankos on the front line, moves forward, has the energy, looks to pick up a kill. Freeze gonna grab Maokai. Ryu gonna grab the Nami. They're moving for more. Rekkles, spell shield deleted. Rekkles drop as well. They're on the run. Odo tempering that aggression.
Nah, they want the Baron. On the big purple worm instead. H2K, one more time. We've said it 500 times this game. They're sticking together as a team. Fnatic didn't get the snowball early, so they never got to set up any sort of split pushing, any sort of pick comp. And H2K have just been team fighting. And now to get a Baron. Nothing Fnatic can do. We see the fight start. Well, you go on the Gragas, he doesn't care.
Just they don't have the tools to burn through. Kha'Zix, not enough penetration. LeBlanc just finishing the Void Staff. They just can't hurt that health bar. We talked about this. They had to snowball. They missed that opportunity. H2K played around it. Now you can see how easy these team fights are for them.
Yeah, so again, Fnatic staying H2K staying 5-man together. Odoamne being the target doesn't matter for H2K. This is what they want because it opens up now for the rest of the damage dealers to move forward. And that's the great thing about these team fights and why fighting with tanks is so effective, because once the enemy team is using cooldowns on your tank, it means you as a Viktor or Draven can actually step forward, because you know, okay, certain spells on cooldown now, there's no threat of me getting instantly killed, so therefore I can step forward and hit the enemy backline. But Fnatic doesn't have the same luxury because they have no way of really forcing cooldowns from H2K.
Interesting decision from Fnatic, looking maybe for that death brush to set up 3 members on the bottom side, but H2K have no reason to even enter that jungle. They're pushing down the lanes. Gragas on the top side, threatening the inhibitor. The rest of the team grouping up to greet him, and Fnatic, because they gambled so much on the early game, don't have the necessary wave clear to really slow this push down.
One more time, H2K staying together. Tower is gone, by the way.
Odo goes in, knocks back, and knocked out. Rekkles dropped in an instant. H2K now poised to take the inhibitor. Febi leaps in and just leaps right back out. H2K, are they going to be able to end this game? Burning through the first tower.
Third.
Chaos Storm zoning out the Team Spirit, taking chunks of damage. LeBlanc doing what she can. Febi, he may have the Void Staff, but it is too little too late. H2K dominating the game. Fnatic, one last shot to try to turn this around. Great tidal wave, but it's simply not enough. Febi drops Jankos, grabbing another kill. Freeze 5-0 and 4. We wanted more from the H2K AD carry, and we got it. 11-1 the final kill score in a commanding game 1.
Febiven poked the bear just before the game in our little feature. Freeze says, all right, I'll log in the Draven. It's fine. And he shows up big time.
Absolutely, and I think the team playing around the pick well.
I mean, it was honestly so easy for H2K in these fights here. Fnatic completely messed up that first Dragon team fight, where they TP in late, get split up, H2K just stays together. And then again, as we talked about, kept mentioning this LeBlanc, how she needs to control around the mid lane, take the 4 buffs as a square, and that's where you need to have this kill pressure and control. But early MR on a Viktor with barrier, nothing Febiven can really do.
And I don't want to be overly critical of Febiven. Criticizes Ryu. You know, maybe you overstep just a little bit, but missing those chains a lot in lane on top of getting the Negatron cloak, like, if you take that lane matchup, you have to be so confident that you're going to be able to win it. And Ryu really did just show up in terms of individual laning prowess because he had the CS advantage.
Sure, I mean, we can criticize individual players, but I actually think this is on Fnatic as a team. And I think also the pick and ban phase, like, Kha'Zix does not set you up to snowball lanes. he wants to snowball himself by being able to invade into enemy jungle, get like 1v1 duels with the enemy jungler, or gank someone who's out of position in a 2v1 situation. But that's very, very hard to do in a professional game. So I think the Kha'Zix pick, it is extremely difficult to play. That's what Spirit said. Yes, they won yesterday with it, but this game we get to see some of the problems where he's not able to have an impact. Also because it was a lane swap, and we just saw H2K sit and farm up that Draven. Like what, 150 CS, get a Ghostblade, walk into, or 100 CS, get a Ghostblade, walk into the first
almost
team fight.
200 stacks. That you said
700
700 cash out.
718, yeah, on the first kill.
Absolutely insane. And looking at the comp, it feels like they doubled down on snowballing in the early game. Whereas we've seen Febiven on these snowball picks with a more supportive style jungler, maybe something early aggressive. And we saw the Kha'Zix yesterday paired with Febiven's Lissandra. Perfect setup for these ganks. You've got one guy who wants to snowball, one person who has excellent control in those situations.
Sure.
And they doubled down today, and it really didn't pay off for them. It feels like too many eggs in the snowball basket, and it didn't work out at all.
And just 2 out to win team fights once they fell behind. It made it look even worse for Fnatic after that Dragon fight. It was like, okay, well, you basically have no way of winning the game now.